Yeah, hi folks. Now I don't know about you guys, but I've had a gutful of New Zealand news presenters destroying our English language by misusing pronouns, etc. for PC reasons. Now we all know that subject, object and possessive pronouns and possessive adjectives, etc. must match the main subject of a sentence. For example, the man singular must be matched by using he, him and his, etc. The woman singular must be matched by using she, her and hers, etc. The men plural must be matched by using they, them, theirs and their, etc. But this is the linguistic nightmare we get.
The Omicron variant has made it out of Auckland after a positive case was detected in Palmerston North. They're a recent returnee to the country, and it is important to note they had completed MIQ properly and returned 5 negative test results in that time. Their flights home on Sunday are now regarded as locations of interest, and there are several others across Palmerston North, including cafes, Bunnings, and retail stores. They became symptomatic on Wednesday and were tested that same day, returning the positive result. Kristen Hall is in Palmerston North for us. Kristen, do we know yet how the person caught Omicron?
No, Melissa, it's not certain yet. This person travelled from their MIQ facility in Christchurch to Auckland and then from Auckland on to Palmerston North. But as yet, there are no direct links either to border-related cases in Auckland or to any positive Omicron cases in Christchurch. Now, given they had those 5 negative tests in MIQ, the Ministry of Health says it's likely the person caught Omicron either in the country that they travelled from or on the plane back to New Zealand.
Now let's go through that again.
The Omicron variant has made it out of Auckland after a positive case was
The Omicron variant has made it out of Auckland after a positive case, singular,
detected in Palmerston North. They're a recent return.
They are. Wrong. It doesn't match. They are is plural. It should be he or she.
To the country, and it is important to note they had completed MIQ
They again.
properly and returned 5 negative test results in that time. Their flights home on Sunday.
Their flights. Wrong again. It should be his or her flights.
Are now regarded as locations of interest, and there are several others across Palmerston North, including cafes, Bunnings and retail stores. They became
They again.
symptomatic on Wednesday and were tested that same day, returning the positive result. Kristen Hall is in Palmerston North for us. Kristen, do we know yet how the person caught
Oh, now she's back to singular again.
Omicron?
No, Melissa, it's not certain yet. This person travelled
This person, singular again.
from their MIQ facility in Christchurch to Auckland and then from Auckland on to Palmerston North. But as yet, there are no direct links either to border-related cases in Auckland or to any positive Omicron cases in Christchurch. Now, given they had those 5 negative
They again, plural. What a mess.
tests in MIQ, the Ministry of Health says it's likely the person caught Omicron either in the country that they travelled from or on the plane back to New Zealand. So it's
Now another problem is this. If you only catch part of the news clip, this is what you hear.
They're a recent returnee to the country, and it is important to note they had completed MIQ properly and returned 5 negative test results in that time. Their flights home on Sunday are now regarded as locations of interest, and there are several others across Palmerston North, including cafes, Bunnings and retail stores. They became symptomatic on Wednesday and were tested that same day.
Now was she talking about one person or 10? Now a lot of that pronoun insanity is driven by this.
I'm Addison.
And I'm Ethan.
We've been together for about
5 years.
And
Been
married?
married for 3 years.
I use they them pronouns. Being non-binary just means that I just don't identify with the gender I was assigned at birth, and I don't identify exclusively with being a man or a woman. I'm something in between, outside of that binary.
My pronouns are he or they. I also identify as a non-binary. To me, being a non-binary means having the sense of freedom to explore my gender in whichever way I want. I don't have to perform or pretend to be someone that I'm not. I can be my authentic self.
It's really important for us to share more information with people because people are curious, they want to understand, but sometimes they don't always have the opportunities to do that.
This is a hot topic.
Yes.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is it a good thing?
I guess because it creates dialogue and it invites conversation to learn about other people.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are really confused about gender identity in these times, and it's good for us to have these conversations so people open their minds and relearn and unlearn to what we've been taught.
Right. And Addison, many people think gender pronouns are exclusive to the LGBTQ plus community, but that's a misconception, true?
Yeah. Well, everybody has pronouns. Like, you may use he and him as your pronouns, right? I use they and them as my pronouns. We all may have a certain gender pronoun too, but I think it's important for people to understand that for trans and non-binary people, we often change our pronouns to reflect who we are when we come out and be who we are.
How do you explain the difference between sex and gender?
I consider sex to be our biological makeup. Our chromosomes or hormones, our genitals is a biological makeup. But our gender is more of an internal sense. So think of it like this. Sex is what's between the legs, and gender is what's between the ears.
Yes, your imagination perhaps.
Right? It's how we see ourselves on the inside.
Okay. And that's something somebody can't know. Gender is something somebody can't know just by looking at somebody.
Nope, yeah. Because everyone is going to present and express themselves in a different way. I know it's very confusing, right? Everyone's like, what is going on? But it's really, about us breaking that assumption that we can tell someone's identity, someone's story, their pronouns, even their name, just based on how they look, right?
Yeah. And so how does someone ask? How does somebody clarify that? Ethan, what's the best way? What's the most comfortable way?
I think for me, to create a safe space for people to share their pronouns, I will say, hi, my name is Ethan. I use he or they pronouns. What about you?
No, you don't get to dictate how people should start a conversation. That's up to them.
I think it's really important for us to recognize other people's pronouns because, again, we can't make that assumption. But for so many people who are cisgender, meaning that you do identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth, you're not transgender or not non-binary, I think a lot of people don't even question their pronouns because we already use them and it's already assumed correctly. Mm-hmm. But for so many trans and non-binary people, that isn't often assumed correctly. So we need to take the time to get to know people.
Cisgender, it says adjective that describes a person whose gender identity matches or aligns with the gender he or she was assigned at birth. Now, this would be what has been traditional for centuries, right? Mm-hmm. Why does it need a term?
If we don't use that term, then we end up saying maybe real men or normal men or regular men, right? Or we just say men, and then we say maybe transgender men, right? And the thing is that we need to realize that trans women are women, trans men are men too. And so we just want to have a term for that privilege, that assumption that your gender identity is going to match the one that you were assigned at birth.
All right, and then transgender, adjective, describes a person whose gender identity does not match or align with the gender they were assigned at birth. And then non-binary describes a person whose gender identity does not fit into the traditional binary of man or woman. And that term can be abbreviated to, and how do you pronounce that?
NB.
NB.
NB, yeah.
Okay, and explain that.
For transgender people, we are assigned a sex at birth. And when we grow up, when there's a mismatch of how we view ourselves and how society views us, then we can choose to, either medically transition or just socially transition or both.
My name is Matt Walsh, and I've written a book called Johnny the Walrus. This book is about identity and imagination. He identifies as a walrus, And his mom's a little silly. She takes it seriously and thinks he really is a walrus. So she went on her phone, and there were people telling her that this isn't pretend. He's really a walrus. And his mother takes him to the doctor to have him surgically transitioned and gets him walrus hormone pills, and then eventually tries to drop him off at a zoo to live with other walruses. Not only topping the Amazon charts, my book has taken the world by storm.
You're saying that there should be no construct of gender, just sex. You're either male or female.
Right.
And someone feeling in a mental, emotional way that they don't identify with the sex that they have been biologically created as and assigned at birth based on their genitalia. If they don't feel that way, that there's no construct that describes that, experiences that.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the reality. So you can feel however you want. I mean, I could sit here and say that I feel like a tomato plant, but that doesn't mean that I'm actually in those things. So your self-perception, you can have whatever self-perception you want.
Yes, that could be a lampshade or a sofa, for example.
My name is Olympia. I'm 17. I'm just a regular suburban chick. And I am addicted to pretending to be furniture. I think it's something I've just loved doing all my life, and it stems from, one sort of Christmas my Aunt Rosemary sat on me accidentally. She didn't mean to, and I was frightened and horrified at first, but, the more that I sort of recalled it and remembered it, I wish she'd do it again. I have to do it. It's a compulsion. I'll be doing, the washing up, some sort of regular, day-to-day activity, and I'll remember that I just love being furniture and I have to do it.
My name is Nova. I am Olympia's, let's say, life partner. Olympia is addicted to taking on the roles of various pieces of furniture. Well, we live in a very small apartment. I just don't understand how she thinks I don't know. I don't think she has no idea. I am very aware of this, I don't want to say sickness.
But you can't expect me to take part in that self-perception or to take part in this kind of charade, this theatrical production. You don't get your own pronouns, just like you don't get your own prepositions or your own adjectives. It's like if I were to tell you, my adjectives are handsome and brilliant, and no matter whatever you're talking about me, you have to describe me as handsome and brilliant because that's how I identify. It makes no sense. You don't get your own pronouns. That's grammar. That's language.
Exactly, and the same should apply to news presenters as well.
So you think it's a delusion? Someone is self-delusional.
Yeah, I think it's delusion. It could be a mental illness. It could be it's a lot of different things. With children, wow. There's also just a basic confusion that all kids have. Like that's why when you hear a parent say, "Oh, my 4-year-old son came to me and said that I'm a girl now, and so that's what I'm gonna raise him as a girl." No, you're a 4-year-old. I have 4 kids. When a 4-year-old boy comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm a girl," here's a good follow-up question: what is a girl? Ask him what he means by that. What do you mean by girl? And when you ask him that, here's what he'll tell you. He will tell you what he really means is that he wants to do some of the things that girls do, like play with the dollhouse, or he likes the color pink. That's fine. Play with the dollhouse, but you're still a boy. That's a question I would like to throw out to other members of the panel. Actually, because just like the 4-year-old can't answer what is a girl, well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. Like, what is a woman?
Well,
can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. Because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what does a female mean?
Well,
how do you define a female?
Someone with female reproductive organs.
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing. When you're female, it goes right down to your bones, your DNA. So that's why if someone dies, we could dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have no idea what they believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Yeah, now that's how Matt wins the argument because he always deals in fact, not fiction.
So I'm trying to understand. Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female, you said, right?
Correct,
Gotcha.
is a biological female.
So what happens if we have maybe someone who is female, identifies as a woman, right? You know, cisgender woman, right? As you just explained, maybe doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're talking about that are reproductive organs.
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not
But
myself.
you used the word, so what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people who...
That describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Yeah, and of course he can't answer that question or won't answer that question because that destroys his whole argument. That exposes his charade. But the same guy could easily describe what an elephant is. But for some reason, he cannot describe what a woman is.
Was to each their own. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently. And so trans women are women too.
Okay.
And you want to hold on. You want to reduce.
You won't even tell me what the word means, though. So
you
that's
want to
the
reduce
problem.
women. You want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals, our chromosomes, right? That's what you're saying.
What you want to do is
that's what
what you want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood.
Okay.
And turn it into basically a costume that can be worn.
Yes, and you can see that appropriation in sport today. Anyway, I'll finish today with some smart words from Matt.
For those who were able to watch it, my appearance on Dr. Phil aired yesterday afternoon. It was my first time appearing on television outside of Fox News and also my first time meeting with a psychologist. Some would say that I should make more of a regular habit of it. Talking to a psychologist, I mean, not appearing on TV. But unfortunately, not everybody was able to watch the discussion, I'm told. In some markets, it was sidelined by President Biden's press conference. I think we can all agree that of all the terrible things Biden has done during his disastrous tenure, preempting my Dr. Phil episode is by far the worst. Now, there's always a certain risk inherent in walking into an environment like this, especially with the cameras rolling. Of course, I knew that I would be outnumbered on stage in front of a hostile studio audience. And if I had been invited to speak about a more complicated or difficult issue, one that requires you to actually be smart, then that would have given me pause. But the topic of the episode was gender and pronouns, which means that it's not complicated or difficult at all. My position, the correct position, is extremely simple, sensible, obvious, and clear. The only mistake that somebody on my side of the issue can make, and very often people do make this mistake, in a debate of this kind, is to make the subject seem more complicated than it is, getting lost in the rhetorical weeds and losing sight of the main point. That's where the other side lives. They're out there in the weeds where things are muddy and muddled. They like it out there. They want to obscure the main point, mystifying what is actually quite simple. As long as you refuse to be baited into that trap and you stay on message, on the firm ground of truth and science and common sense, you can have this conversation anywhere, with anybody, on any platform, in front of any audience, and you will walk away the winner every time. And if you're a naturally argumentative bastard like myself, you'll even have fun doing it.